This right here is an $8 breaker. You can grab it at any hardware store. It looks completely normal, nothing suspicious about it at all. And right now, there are hundreds of thousands of DIY solar setups across America using this exact type of breaker wired directly into their DC solar systems. Here's the problem. That breaker was never designed to do that job. And the physics of why is going to make your stomach drop. DC, electricity, the kind your solar panels produce, doesn't behave like the power coming out of your wall outlets. Not even close. And when you put the wrong breaker on a DC circuit, you don't just get a tripped breaker. You get an arc. A sustained, self-feeding plasma arc that burns at up to 20,000 degrees Celsius hotter than the surface of the sun that your breaker physically cannot shut off. That arc doesn't stop. It just keeps going until something catches fire. Before we get into this, I want you to check your own system right now. Look at your breaker and tell me, does it say AC or DC on the label? Drop one word in the comments. Just AC or DC? Your answer might save your house. Here's what nobody tells you when you buy a solar kit online. The AC breaker and the DC breaker, sitting side by side on the shelf at Home Depot, look identical. Same black plastic body, same toggle switch, same size. The label on the AC breaker says 600V. The DC breaker says 600V DC. That's it. That's the only visible difference, a two-letter abbreviation that most people either miss completely or assume doesn't matter. And the price gap? We're talking $3 to $8 for an AC breaker versus $15 to $40 for a proper DC rated breaker. A difference of maybe $25. So when someone is building their first off-grid system, watching YouTube tutorials at midnight, trying to cut costs wherever they can, they grab the cheaper one. It looks the same. The voltage number matches. What could go wrong? A lot. Everything, actually. But here's what makes this situation worse than just a simple, honest mistake. The DIY solar content ecosystem has a massive blind spot around this issue. There are thousands of solar installation videos online walking people through panel wiring, inverter setup, battery banks, and a huge percentage of them never once mention that the breaker rating has to specifically say DC. Not because the creators are trying to mislead anyone, but because this is the kind of detail that falls through the cracks when technical education gets compressed into an 8-minute video. The result? A widespread, silent, ticking problem sitting inside solar setups all over the country, and most people have no idea it's there. To understand why this matters so much, you need to understand one concept. It's called zero crossing, and once you get it, you'll never look at a breaker the same way again. AC electricity, the power in your home's wall outlets, doesn't flow in one constant direction. It alternates. It cycles back and forth 60 times per second. And because of that cycling, the current passes through 0 volts 120 times every single second. That means every 8.3 milliseconds, the electrical current in an AC circuit naturally drops to 0. That zero crossing moment is when an arc extinguishes itself. Think of it like a campfire. Every 8.3 milliseconds, someone throws a bucket of water on it. The fire might reignite immediately after, but there's that brief, forced pause. AC breakers are engineered to exploit exactly that pause. When they trip, they just need to hold the contacts apart long enough for that natural zero crossing to kill the arc. The gap on AC breaker contacts is typically 3 to 5 millimeters. That's all it needs, because the physics of AC does the heavy lifting. DC electricity works completely differently. The current from your solar panels flows in one constant, uninterrupted direction. There is no zero crossing. There is no natural pause. If an arc forms in a DC circuit, there is nothing in the physics of DC to stop it. The arc is self-sustaining. It feeds off the continuous voltage, ionizes the surrounding air, and maintains a plasma channel that keeps conducting electricity even across an open gap. And here's where the numbers get alarming. A DC arc in a solar system can reach temperatures between 6,000 degrees Celsius and 20,000 degrees Celsius. For reference, the surface of the sun sits at about 5,500 degrees Celsius. We're talking about a sustained plasma event inside your electrical panel that is physically hotter than the sun's surface. And your AC breaker, when it trips, opens a 3 to 5 millimeter gap that the DC arc simply bridges and continues burning across. Testing conducted at TÜV Rheinland's laboratory in 2023 measured a 6.3 amp DC arc at 1,500 volts. It required 14 milliseconds to interrupt. An equivalent AC arc took 4 milliseconds. That difference in interruption time resulted in 3.5 times more energy released, meaning 3.5 times more heat, more damage, more potential for fire. This is exactly why the standards exist. NEC Article 690, the National Electrical Code governing all solar PV systems in the United States, explicitly requires DC-rated equipment throughout the entire DC circuit, not suggested, required. IEC 60947-2, the international standard for low-voltage circuit breakers, mandates that DC-rated breakers include contact gaps 2 to 3 times wider than AC equivalents, specialized magnetic blowout coils that use Lorentz force to physically push the arc away from the contacts, and dedicated arc chute chambers that split and cool the arc until it extinguishes. A standard 600V AC breaker is only safely rated for 250 to 300 volts DC at best. A typical residential solar string system operates between 300 and 600 volts DC. You can see the problem immediately. And if you think the fire risk is abstract, the U.S. Fire Administration reports that electrical faults cause approximately 24,000 residential fires per year, resulting in $871 million in property damage annually. Improper protection equipment is a documented contributor to that number. This is not a theoretical risk. This is a statistical reality. All right, here's exactly what you need to do, and it takes less than 10 minutes to check. Step 1. Read the label on your breaker right now. Look for these specific markings. If it shows a tilde symbol, that wavy line that looks like this, that means AC only. Do not use it in a DC solar circuit. If it shows 3 horizontal dashes, that is the DC symbol. That's what you want. More importantly, look at the voltage rating. It needs to specifically say DC after the number 600V alone defaults to AC. You need 600 VDC or 1000 VDC or DC PV rated, printed clearly on the breaker body. If your breaker doesn't say DC, explicitly assume it's an AC breaker and treat it as a problem that needs to be fixed. Step 2, size it correctly. Per NEC 690.8, your DC breaker must be rated for at least 125% of the short circuit current, ISC, of your solar string. Here's the math. If your string of panels has a combined ISC of 10 amps, you multiply 10 by 1.25. You need a minimum 15 amp DC rated breaker. Round up to the next standard size, in this case, a 20 amp. Step 3, buy the right equipment. Brands that consistently meet DC PV standards and are readily available in the U.S. market. Midnight Solar, designed specifically for solar applications. Schneider Electric commercial grade, widely stocked. Eaton and Siemens both offer PV-rated DC breaker lines available at major electrical suppliers. Price range on Amazon or electrical supply houses, $15 to $40 for a proper DC-rated breaker. Compare that to the $3 to $8 AC breaker sitting in your panel right now. You are protecting a system worth $8,000 to $25,000 and your home for a price difference of roughly $25. Step 4. Know the warning signs that something is already wrong. Check your system for these right now. Your breaker feels hot to the touch during normal operation. There's a burning smell near your electrical panel, even faint, even intermittent. Your breaker trips, but resets normally and seems fine. This is actually a red flag, not a reassurance. Micro-arcing events can trip a breaker without leaving obvious visible damage, and they will recur. Any visible scorch marks, discoloration, or melted plastic around the breaker or wiring connections. If you see any of these, stop using the system and call a licensed solar electrician. Not tomorrow, today. Now, I want to be straight with you about something, because this channel is only worth your time if I'm not exaggerating things to get clicks. A wrong breaker is a serious problem, but it is not the only serious problem in a solar system, and it won't necessarily cause a fire overnight. The full picture of solar fire risk is actually encouraging. Properly installed solar systems catch fire at a rate of approximately 1 inch 10,000 systems per year. To put that in perspective, your clothes dryer is roughly 50 times more likely to start a fire than a correctly installed solar setup. Solar, done right, is one of the safest electrical systems you can put in a home. The key word is correctly installed. Using an AC breaker in a DC circuit is not the only way an installation goes wrong. Undersized wiring, loose connections, missing arc fault circuit interrupters, all of these carry real risk independently. Fixing your breaker is one critical piece, not the complete picture. What I want you to take away from this is not fear. Fear isn't useful here. What is useful is this. You now know exactly what to look for, exactly what the standard requires, and exactly what a correct installation looks like. That knowledge is the difference between being someone who hopes their system is fine and someone who actually knows it is. There's a bigger lesson inside all of this, and I think it's worth saying clearly. The solar industry is growing faster than the education around it. In 2024, the U.S. added more residential solar capacity than any previous year. Millions of people are making the jump to solar, many of them building systems themselves to save money, to gain independence, to reduce their footprint. That is a genuinely good thing. But that growth has outpaced the spread of real technical knowledge. The YouTube algorithm rewards fast, accessible, visually satisfying content. And here's how to wire your combiner box with code-compliant DC-rated breakers. Properly sized to 125% of your string, ISK does not make for a great thumbnail. So the knowledge gap persists. And the gap is not in people's intelligence or their capability, it's in where the information has and hasn't reached. Here's the rule I want you to leave with today. DC and AC are two fundamentally different electrical worlds. Equipment designed for one is not interchangeable with the other ever. Not based on price, not based on appearance, not based on voltage numbers alone. A 600V AC breaker handling DC isn't just underperforming. It's a device being asked to do something its internal physics cannot do. When it fails, and if asked to interrupt a sustained DC arc, it will eventually fail. It doesn't just trip and cut the circuit. It sustains the arc. It becomes part of the problem. The most dangerous mistakes in electrical systems are not the ones that announce themselves immediately. They're the ones that sit quietly, undetected, operating just well enough to seem fine until one day the conditions line up and they aren't fine anymore. You now know what a DC-rated breaker looks like, what it needs to say on the label, what the code requires, and what the physics is actually doing inside that enclosure. That knowledge cost you nothing but a few minutes. And it is exactly the kind of thing that can protect everything you have built. If this gave you something useful, share it with someone who has solar or who's planning to go solar. Subscribe for the next video, where we're going into the second most common silent mistake in DIY solar systems. And drop your breaker. Type in the comments below, AC or DC. Let's see how many people catch this in their own systems.